Oh, sorry, I have two screens. I forgot which one to look at. So, I realized after I finished recording the video that I left out a section. I never talked about networking, and I see this a lot. And because of social media, and especially the impact of Twitter and LinkedIn, and um, basically the impact that how you get a job in all the ways besides just simply applying for it. I thought I needed to talk about it. Me personally, I'm an introvert, so I could never see myself just sliding in a random person's DM and asking them for a favor. That just wasn't me. So I found a backdoor workaround to that. That is actually why I chose to learn in public. I told you I discovered Michael White's YouTube, and he learned in public. And when you do that, you don't notice it at the time, but it makes people gravitate naturally to you. Like, I don't mind talking to people. I just probably wouldn't have initiated the conversation unless I had interacted with you, pretty frequently, in like you commenting on my tweets and vice versa. So yeah, I initially started on Instagram, and then I learned about tech Twitter. So I just started posting my 100 Days of Code videos on Twitter. Um, and some of the videos got to be too long, so the only other option was to upload to YouTube. And I'm like, well, I may as well just make a whole playlist, like make a whole YouTube too. So um, I made a whole YouTube, and then after 100 Days of Code was over with, I decided to keep up the trend. I no longer did the 100 Days of Code challenge. I would just post like demo updates of the work that I did, and I decided to make like a playlist for each project. I didn't do it initially, but like the more recent projects, like you can see a whole playlist of, all right, on this day, here's what I did, here's what I worked on, here's the updates, and here's the video demo. And because of that, I gained a whole following. I think now I'm up to over 2,000 followers on Twitter, which, disclaimer, I am not seeking followers. I never sought followers. I never really cared that I had followers. It was just about exposure, to put myself out there without having to, I guess, slide in people's DMs and initiate. Like, my stuff was out there. If you wanted to see it, it was there for you to see. And on YouTube, I think I have like 60 followers now. LinkedIn, I started posting the same thing on Twitter, just my video demos on Twitter, as I do on LinkedIn. When it came to LinkedIn was so like uptight and just so formal. I never really knew what else to post besides just video demos and like only like, here's what I have just done or something regarding tech. But yeah, and LinkedIn is important, but I really didn't get that much success from LinkedIn. Like, recruiters did message me on LinkedIn, but they were a bunch of dead ends, to be honest. I don't think any recruiter that reached out to me, I ever got past the vibe check. So, and 9 times out of 10, also, when a recruiter did reach out to me, it nowhere near aligned with my skills. Like, if I had JavaScript, React, they would send me a job posting about C# or like something completely off the mark. So yeah. Another thing I did was I started doing weekly video chats. Shout out to you, Andrew. I don't even remember how we started. I think I ran across his Instagram first, and I saw that he was also doing the Odin Project as well. And you'd see people on Twitter doing like Free Code Camp, Udemy, or whatever, but at that time, the Odin Project, I just didn't come across that many people also doing it too. So, and then when I found out like he had also quit his job to learn how to code, so that was like another parallel that I had. So like, you never understand that how powerful it is to find somebody who's like with the exact same or almost the same circumstances as you, just because they understand on a different level than someone who's just learning to code, but they're still working full time. You're going to have completely different struggles. So yeah, every Friday, starting from like right before Thanksgiving, and we still currently do them. We just talk about like what we learned, cool resources we found. Towards the end, we started, I guess, low key doing code reviews. Like, he'd ask or I'd ask him something like, "Hey, how'd you get this to work?" And we figured out we could share our screen. And so I literally show the code, like show like my thought process and like time to talk through the code. And we both be like, "Oh, okay, like that's cool to see." I think we also tried out the live share collaboration on VS Code. But yeah, so we got to experiment with the live share feature, which on VS Code, you're able to open like a remote connection with someone else who's also using VS Code. You basically give them permission to have access to your screen. And so once you give them like read, write access, you can literally have your code open. They can see your screen and they can type in their VS Code, and they'll be typing on your screen. Well, not typing their VS Code. I think it sends them to a link, and on the link is your code. And so when they type, you can see like literally their name with a little flag typing across the screen. This came in handy because now that I'm in Collab Lab, for our first group project, well, meeting for the first time, because we're in different time zones, different states, we're all working remotely, I suggested like, hey, let's try this out. I hadn't like really used its potential. And so lucky my partner was willing to try it. And so like we spent like a couple minutes figuring out how, it all worked, but it was really helpful. Like that way we both didn't have to like constantly pull down code that the other person wrote and vice versa. And to make both our local, in sync, all I had to do was whoever was the driver, they commit the code. And then when we were done, the other person could just commit it back down. And like, yes, one person only made the commit. However, I could have wrote something and the other person could have wrote something all on the same local version of the project. So that was really awesome. Actually had a video chat with Alex. Shout out to you. I've been following him. He always says I'm one of the OGs. I've been following him since when I was still doing my 100 Days of Code challenge, the original challenge. And I remember like he was also on the job hunt, also still learning. And, we both encourage each other or whatever. And so after I got hired, I was like, we need to chat. And so we had a video. We probably talked for like 2 hours. Anybody who's talked to me, like if you're interested in something, like I'll talk to you. As long as I have the time, as long as like I know you're actually interested or whatever. So yeah, if you ask me a question, I'll do my best to answer you. I consider that like my contribution to the tech world. I know a lot of people say like once you get in to, hold the rope and let someone else climb up, like leave the door open for someone. So I guess that's really why I did it. And like, yeah, if anybody slides into my DMs, as long as you ask a valid question, I'll answer you. That's another thing. All right, if you are the type of person to just slide in someone's DMs, make sure when you ask them a question that you've done your homework first. Because I also got a lot of questions that just were super broad. I saw you got into tech. How do I do it? Or how do I get into tech? And my first question is, how do you get into tech to do what? Like, you're missing a whole lot of the rest of that question. What do you like to do? What have you tried? Like you left out everything. Consider it like when you have an error in your code and you ask for help, it's useful to know what you've already tried, like what the error says, what failed, like what are you working on, like all the context around it. That way, one, you're not wasting the other person's time. And two, like they can narrow down to like, all right, you tried X, Y, Z. Now I know we can start on line 3 or step 3 and skip step 1 and 2. So yeah, before you start networking, make sure that you've narrowed it down. A person can only help you as much as you've helped yourself first. Like that is key to understand. Like I literally broke it down to quite a few people in my inbox. Like, hey, like, why do you even want to get into tech? Like, why tech? Is it because you saw it on TikTok and it looked cool? Or is it something that you're actually interested in? Because that makes a difference. Find out what jobs, like some people just say, I want to get into tech. You don't even know what does it mean to get into tech? Like you could be a data analyst, you could be a web developer, you could do cybersecurity. Like there's so much in tech. First, narrow it down to the area, then narrow it down to the type of role, because even each area has maybe 10 different roles in that one area. Then once you find that area, narrow it down to read some job postings. See, does that job even sound like what you thought it was? Watch some YouTube videos. Then you can ask like specific questions. Say you found someone who is doing the same role that you're interested in. Ask them. You have like specific things to ask. Have a specific goal. Formulate a specific question. So yeah, I'm going to pause this for a second. Sorry, I really wish that I had more than 5 minute window, because like it's strange to cut off and not lose my train of thought. But anyway, That's what you get for using a free version of something, because I'm cheap. But yeah, so another thing about networking, I've seen it a lot on Twitter lately. Like, people put so much emphasis on networking, which, yes, like I said, I'm not denying it. Networking has its place when it comes to your web development journey. I'll just give my opinion and what I did. My take on networking is, I didn't think it did that much good to focus so much on networking if once you got all this attention to you or to your page, there wasn't anything to see. Like, there's people out here networking. There's no portfolio linked in your Twitter. So if someone finds your Twitter, there's no reason to stay on your page. They're going to go right back to whatever they were doing. Same thing with your LinkedIn. Or say you have a portfolio, but there's no projects on it. Or they go to your GitHub, you didn't commit anything, there's no projects on it. You go to your Twitter and like you have your personal Twitter mixed in with business, like it's nothing tech related. Like, it's people network, like people like want all this attention on them. And then like, what are you going to do with the attention? Like, what do you have to, like, what's your selling point? What's going to keep them there? Because like, getting attention is one thing, keeping it is the other half. Like for example, your portfolio, like you want people to see your portfolio, click on it or whatever when you apply for a job, but there has to be something fascinating, memorable, cool, something that makes them want to actually click on your projects and look at them, or just click the X and go to the next applicant. So for me, I let my work speak for me, because like I said, I wasn't going to just nosedive into people's DMs. That's just not my style. So my work was everywhere. If you found my LinkedIn, my Instagram, my Twitter, my YouTube, like you saw my work like shamelessly plugged everywhere. And as a result, people hit me up. People gravitated towards me. And it worked out because I'm probably not going to make the first move, but I'll make the second. If that makes sense. So yeah, another thing, remember I told you about the guy that messaged me on Twitter? That was because I learned in public. At some point, he had to see my page to click on it, because at the time we had no common followers, as far as I know. We follow each other now, of course. So yeah, like someone shared something and he saw it. And that's another thing to keep in mind. You never know who's watching. That random follower could be your potential boss. That random follower could be the person that's going to interview you. Like, some people don't put their company in their bio, but they're a very important person in tech. So you never know who's watching. That way it's always best to stay ready. That way you never have to get ready. So as soon as I have my portfolio, I plug the link in my bio. I plug my YouTube, like everything links back to everything. So no matter where you found me, you can find everything else about me. One good thing, I have a link tree. So, Linktree allows you to only have one URL, and then when you click on the link, it takes you to like a little page, like a landing page, and then you can plug everything else, because Twitter only allows you to put one URL. So you can literally find everything that I have on the internet from that one link, and that's on my Instagram bio. That's on Twitter. I didn't put as much on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is more, like I said, more like button up your shirt all the way and like super formal. So, but yeah. What else? But yeah, the guy that reached out to me, now this is the power of networking. He reached out. I'm pretty sure he put in a good word. And that's why I was able to get an interview at the company that he worked at. Even though it didn't work out, it all worked out in the end, because when it came to the role that I did get, he had offered to be a reference for me. I'm a person, like, I also won't ask you to be a reference. I feel like that's something that people choose to do. When you solicit references, like, you don't know if that person has anything good to say about you. So like, that's how I look at it. I've always looked at it that way. It's like, you could have a different point of view on it. Cool. Like, we're different. Let's agree to disagree. But yeah, so he put that thought out there. At the time, I had never been asked for a reference. So when the time came, I actually was asked to provide references. Like, I was like, hey, can I still take you up on that offer? And he was like, absolutely. So that's a reference. And it's an interesting reference because he interviewed me and it didn't work out. Not that I didn't get accepted. It was almost like a technicality. Like, I don't know, like that job posting is like in limbo. I don't know. But anyway, one more thing, as I was about to submit this video to YouTube, I remember that I left out one more person. Shout out to you, Shelby. we had one mentor session. We never had any more. However, in our talk, like, she just gave me a different perspective. Like, she told me to think about what type of role, what specific like company am I targeting? Because, like, as you know, they all have different requirements. And at that point, that's when I realized that I wanted to target a web dev agency. Like, that's when I realized the whole thing. Like, I mean, I didn't really care about all that. So I was looking for smaller companies. I really wasn't caught up in the hype of a thing. So yeah, shout out to you and thank you.